amount of vilification that I have suffered trying to act in the public interest bring this matter to closure. I've been accused of talking nonsense, utter nonsense, of misleading people. Well, the nation has now heard the Prime Minister's story, and they now know from the Prime Minister himself that there is not one single thing on this matter that I've brought to public attention that the Prime Minister was able to contradict last night. He made heavy weather about people with political agendas and all that stuff. But that is the modus operandi of the Prime Minister. Anywhere else in the civilized world, Matt, we would be dealing this morning with the resignation of a Prime Minister. Not what he had to say. Because what he said last night amounts to nothing more than a defense of fraud. A defense of fraud. And as I take my time with this morning, you'll understand what I mean by a defense of fraud. In all of what the Prime Minister told us last night, we now know from the Prime Minister's own presentation that there was no tender for the supply of garbage bins to the Prime Minister's office on behalf of the Roseau City Council. No, that there was no competitive bidding. We now know that while the Prime Minister gave us this elaborate story about the Roseau City Council launching last year a program for the improvement of the city of Roseau, and the program also included the provision of garbage cans to the residents of the city to eliminate garbage bags from the street. Remember, the Prime Minister quoted a number of letters. Where is the letter from the City Council making the official request to the Prime Minister for these garbage bins to be part of that program of improvement for the city of Roseau? He was unable last night to quote a letter because no such letter exists. And the question remains, on what basis did the Prime Minister agree to approve expenditure of $750,000 from the public purse for the purchase of garbage bins? Why is the purchase being made by the Prime Minister's office? Those questions remain unanswered. We have a solid waste department. We have a solid waste corporation. We have a Ministry of Community Development. Why is the Prime Minister's office making the purchase of the garbage bins? Notice, Matt, that when both leaders from Giselle Allport, it's been very specific as to who did what when. When it involves himself, he doesn't tell you that I am the one. The Prime Minister is the one who approves the contingency, the payment from the contingency fund. A payment necessitated because he was spending the state's money without a budgetary allocation. He was the one who approved it. The Prime Minister also had the temerity to admit that the invoice against which the state's money was paid carried no item description. I want to repeat that. The Prime Minister confirmed that the invoice against which approval was given and the state's money was paid to Andre Dockwell carried no item description. Yet, the Prime Minister tells us that based on all the reports that he has read, has received, and the information that he has collated, he's satisfied that the public officers of the Prime Minister performed their duties with competence and due diligence. And that public officers like himself were entitled to rely on documentation and information given and conveyed to them. Given and conferred to them by who? What specific documentation are we talking about? Because all we have so far, even after last night, is a pro forma invoice against which the Prime Minister approved. And then he told us, after he approved the purchase of the bins, he referred the matter to the senior administrative and accounting officers in the Office of the Prime Minister for processing. And then, interestingly, on the request of the Office of the Prime Minister, an invoice was prepared requiring billing and shipment to the Office of the Prime Minister because, of course, they're purchasing the bins on behalf of the Council. That invoice is the very same invoice which includes no item description. What due diligence are we talking about? What this means, Matt, is that the Prime Minister and his Ministry of the Prime Minister's Office paid out the state's money not knowing specifically what they were buying. And they paid this money to Andre Duckwell before he spent 1 red cent on any garbage bin. Remember, I've been saying the payment was made by the National Bank of Dominica on the 9th of May.